Hey everyone, I'm Sarah, and I've been teaching English and communication skills for over 8 years now.
And I'm Johnny. I've worked in corporate environments across 3 different countries, so I've seen my fair share of workplace drama.
We're here on Native Speakers to help you improve your English while learning practical skills you can actually use in real life.
Today, we're diving into something that makes everyone uncomfortable: workplace conflicts. And trust me, we're going to show you the mistakes that could be costing you respect, promotions, and even friendships at work.
So grab your notebook because this conversation is going to be packed with useful phrases, real scenarios, and honest advice. Let's get started.
All right, Sarah, let me start with a question that I think a lot of people struggle with. What's the biggest mistake people make when they first notice conflict brewing at work?
Oh, that's easy. They ignore it. People think that if they pretend the problem doesn't exist, it'll magically disappear. But here's the thing. Unresolved tension is like a small crack in a wall. At first, it seems harmless, but over time, it spreads and weakens the entire structure.
I couldn't agree more. I remember working with this guy named Marcus a few years ago. He and another colleague, Lisa, had this ongoing disagreement about project responsibilities. Neither of them addressed it directly. Instead, they started making passive-aggressive comments in meetings.
Oh no, passive-aggressive behavior? That's toxic workplace behavior 101. What happened?
Well, it got worse. Marcus would say things like, "Well, I would have finished that report on time if certain people had sent me the data when they promised." And Lisa would fire back with, "Maybe some people should check their emails more often instead of blaming others."
Yikes. So they were addressing the conflict, but in the worst possible way. They were vague, accusatory, and did it publicly. That's a recipe for disaster.
Exactly. And here's the key phrase that everyone should learn. "Can we talk privately for a moment?" That simple sentence could have saved them months of tension.
Absolutely. Conflict resolution should almost always happen in private, one-on-one settings. When you call someone out in front of others, even subtly, you're not trying to solve the problem, you're trying to humiliate them, and that makes people defensive.
So, lesson number 1, address conflicts early and privately. Don't let resentment build up, and don't air your dirty laundry in front of the whole team.
Now, let's talk about the actual conversation. Imagine you need to confront a coworker about something that's bothering you. What's the second big mistake people make?
They start with accusations. They say things like, "You always do this," or "You never listen to me." Those absolute statements, always and never, immediately put people on the defensive.
Right. It's what we call you language versus I language. When you say, "You always interrupt me in meetings," the other person hears an attack. But if you say, "I've noticed that when I'm speaking in meetings, I sometimes get interrupted and it makes me feel like my ideas aren't valued," you're expressing how you feel without blaming them.
That's such a powerful shift. Can you give me another example?
Sure. Instead of saying, "You never respond to my emails on time," you could say, "I've sent a few emails recently and haven't heard back within the time frame we discussed. I'm wondering if there's a communication issue we need to address."
I love that. It's direct, but it's not aggressive. You're opening a dialogue instead of starting a fight.
Exactly. And here's another phrase that works wonders. Help me understand. For example, help me understand why this deadline keeps getting pushed back. Is there something I'm missing?
Oh, that's good. It assumes positive intent. You're not accusing them of being lazy or incompetent. You're genuinely asking for their perspective.
And that brings us to lesson number 2. Use I statements and ask open-ended questions. This keeps the conversation collaborative rather than confrontational.
Okay, so we've addressed the conflict privately, we've used I language, and we've asked for their perspective. Now what? What if the other person gets defensive anyway?
Great question. This happens all the time. Someone might say, "I can't believe you're bringing this up. I work harder than anyone on this team." Or they might deflect and say, "Well, what about that time you dropped the ball on that project?"
Ugh, the deflection move. Classic.
Right? So here's what you don't do. You don't take the bait. If they bring up your past mistakes, you calmly say, I appreciate you bringing that up and I'd be happy to discuss that another time. But right now, I'd really like to focus on this specific issue we're facing. Can we do that?
That's brilliant. You're acknowledging their concern without getting sidetracked. You're maintaining control of the conversation.
Exactly. And if they're getting really emotional, maybe they're raising their voice or getting visibly upset, you might need to suggest taking a break. You could say, I can see this is really affecting you. Maybe we should take 15 minutes and come back to this when we've both had a chance to collect our thoughts.
I actually used that phrase once with a manager who was furious about a project delay. I said, I want to have a productive conversation about this, but I think we're both too worked up right now. Can we revisit this in an hour?
And what happened?
He agreed, and when we met again, he was so much calmer. We actually solved the problem instead of just yelling about it.
Perfect example. So, lesson number 3, stay calm, don't take the bait, and suggest a pause if emotions are running too high.
Now, Sarah, let's talk about something that I think trips people up constantly, the difference between being assertive and being aggressive.
Oh, this is so important. People often confuse the two. Being assertive means standing up for yourself and expressing your needs clearly and respectfully. Being aggressive means trying to dominate or intimidate the other person.
Can you give me an example of each?
Sure. Let's say your coworker keeps taking your credit for ideas in meetings. An aggressive response might be, "Stop stealing my ideas. You always do this, and I'm sick of it."
Yikes, that's definitely going to start a war.
Right? But an assertive response would be, I've noticed that some of the ideas I've shared with you privately have been presented as collaborative efforts or solely yours in our team meetings. I'd appreciate it if we could clarify who contributed what, especially since I spent a lot of time developing those concepts.
That's firm, but it's not hostile. You're setting a boundary without attacking them.
Exactly. And here's a key phrase for being assertive. I need. For example, I need us to have clear communication about project ownership. Or, I need you to follow through on the commitments you make during our meetings.
I also think tone matters just as much as the words you choose. You can say the perfect sentence, but if you're rolling your eyes or using a sarcastic tone, it's going to come across as aggressive.
Absolutely. Your body language and tone should match your message. Make eye contact, keep your voice steady and calm, and avoid crossing your arms or pointing fingers.
So lesson number 4, be assertive, not aggressive, and pay attention to your tone and body language.
Okay, Johnny, let's get into some real-life scenarios. I want our viewers to hear what these conversations actually sound like. Let's role play.
I love it. Okay, let's say I'm your coworker and I keep interrupting you during meetings. You want to address it. Go.
Okay. Hey, Johnny, do you have a few minutes? I wanted to talk to you about something that's been on my mind.
Sure. What's up?
I've noticed that during our last few team meetings, I've been interrupted while I'm presenting my ideas. It's happened several times, and I'm starting to feel like my contributions aren't being heard. I don't think you're doing it intentionally, but I wanted to bring it up so we can make sure we're creating space for everyone to speak.
Oh, I didn't realize I was doing that. I'm sorry. I get excited about ideas and sometimes jump in without thinking.
I appreciate you saying that. I get excited too. Maybe we could agree that if one of us notices the other getting cut off, we could politely say, "Hold on, let's let Sarah finish," or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds fair. Thanks for bringing it up.
And scene. See how that worked? I addressed the issue, used I language, assumed positive intent, and offered a solution.
That was perfect. Now let me try one. Sarah, you're my manager, and I feel like you've been micromanaging me lately. I want to address it without sounding disrespectful.
Okay, go ahead.
Hey, Sarah, thanks for meeting with me. I wanted to talk about how we're working together on projects. I've noticed that you've been checking in on my progress pretty frequently, sometimes multiple times a day. I really value your guidance, but I'm wondering if we could establish some check-in points that work for both of us. I do my best work when I have some autonomy, and I want to make sure I'm meeting your expectations while also feeling trusted to handle my responsibilities.
You know what, Johnny? I didn't realize I was hovering that much. I've just been under a lot of pressure from upper management to make sure everything's on track. But you're right, you've always delivered quality work, and I should trust you more. How about we set up a daily end-of-day email update and a midweek check-in call? Would that work better?
That sounds perfect. I'll keep you informed and you'll have the visibility you need without either of us feeling overwhelmed.
Great. I appreciate you bringing this up professionally.
And that's how it's done, folks. Notice how I didn't say, "You're micromanaging me and it's driving me crazy." I explained how the situation was affecting me and offered a solution.
Lesson number 5, always come to a conflict conversation with a potential solution, not just a complaint.
Now let's talk about what happens after the conflict conversation. This is where a lot of people mess up.
Oh, absolutely. Some people think that once they've had the talk, everything's magically fixed, but real conflict resolution requires follow-through.
Right. If you agreed to certain changes, like in our micromanaging example, you need to actually implement them and check back in. Don't just assume everything's fine now.
Exactly. After a week or two, you might say, "Hey, I wanted to check in about our new communication system. Is this working better for you?" That shows you're committed to maintaining a good working relationship.
And if the problem hasn't improved, you need to address it again. You might say, "I appreciate that we talked about this last week, but I've noticed that the same issue is still happening. I'm wondering what we can do differently."
This is where persistence meets professionalism. You're not nagging, you're holding people accountable in a respectful way.
And sometimes you need to escalate. If you've tried multiple times to resolve something directly and it's not working, it might be time to involve a manager or HR.
But, and this is important, escalation should be your last resort, not your first move. You should be able to say, "I've attempted to resolve this directly on 3 separate occasions, and we haven't been able to reach a solution. I need some additional support."
So lesson number 6, follow through on agreed upon changes and don't be afraid to revisit the conversation or escalate if necessary.
Sarah, before we wrap up, I want to talk about one more huge mistake, and that's making conflicts personal instead of keeping them professional.
Oh, this is a big one. What do you mean exactly?
When there's a conflict, it should be about behaviors and outcomes, not about someone's character or personality. For example, don't say, "You're so disorganized." Instead, say, "The filing system we're using isn't working well, and it's causing delays. Can we brainstorm a better organization method?"
I see. So you're focusing on the system or the behavior, not attacking the person.
Exactly. Another example, instead of "You're unreliable," you'd say, "I've noticed that deadlines have been missed on the last 3 projects. Let's figure out if there's a workload issue or if we need to adjust our timelines."
That's so much more constructive, and it gives the person a way to save face and actually improve.
Right. People can change their behaviors, but they can't change who they fundamentally are. So keep it professional, keep it specific, and keep it action-oriented.
So lesson number 7, address behaviors and systems, not personalities or character.
All right, let's bring this home with one final point, and it's about you, not the other person.
Ooh, self-reflection time. I like it.
Yes, before you march into a conflict conversation, ask yourself, am I contributing to this problem in any way? Maybe you're not communicating your expectations clearly. Maybe you're being too sensitive. Maybe you misunderstood something.
That's humility, and it's so valuable. I remember a conflict I had where I was convinced my coworker was ignoring my requests. Turns out my emails were going to her spam folder. We could have avoided weeks of tension if I'd just asked, "Are you receiving my emails?"
Perfect example. Sometimes the conflict is just a misunderstanding or a technical glitch. Don't assume malicious intent when there might be a simple explanation.
And even if you're 90% sure the other person is in the wrong, owning your 10% makes a huge difference. You might say, "I realize I could have been clearer in my instructions, but I also need you to ask questions if something isn't making sense."
That's beautiful. It shows maturity and opens the door for honest dialogue.
So our final lesson, number 8, practice self-awareness and own your part in the conflict.
Wow, Johnny, we covered so much ground today. Let's quickly recap the main points for everyone watching.
Great idea. So to recap, Lesson 1, address conflicts early and privately. Lesson 2, use I statements and ask open-ended questions. Lesson 3, stay calm, don't take the bait, and suggest a pause if needed. Lesson 4, be assertive, not aggressive, and pay attention to your tone and body language.
These aren't just English phrases, folks. These are life skills. Whether you're working in an English-speaking country or using English in international business, knowing how to navigate workplace conflicts professionally will set you apart.
And remember, conflict isn't necessarily a bad thing. When handled well, it can actually strengthen relationships, clarify expectations, and lead to better outcomes for everyone.
Absolutely. So don't avoid difficult conversations. Prepare for them, approach them with respect, and focus on finding solutions.
If you found this helpful, make sure to follow native speakers for more practical English lessons like this. We're here to help you communicate confidently in real-world situations.
Drop a comment below telling us about a workplace conflict you've faced and how you handled it, or how you wish you'd handled it. We love hearing from you.
And hey, conflict resolution is a skill that takes practice. Don't beat yourself up if your first few attempts aren't perfect. Just keep trying, keep learning, and keep growing.
Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Until next time, keep practicing, keep speaking, and keep being awesome.
See you in the next lesson. Bye.